While preparing dinner for my husband's entire family, I stepped into the garage for more chairs and heard his brother say, "I still can't believe he married this loser. Dad's right. You need to divorce her before you have kids and get stuck forever." He replied, "Already working on it. My lawyer says we can take half her business too." I returned with the chairs and continued hosting with a perfect smile. 3 days later, my WhatsApp was flooded with 47 desperate messages begging me. Something had felt off about Marcus the week before the family dinner. Not the usual kind of off like when he's stressed about work or annoyed that I left my boots in the hallway again. This was different. He kept checking his phone when he thought I wasn't looking, switching tabs whenever I walked behind him, and started taking calls in another room. After 7 years together, you develop a sense for these things. Like how you can tell when a wall isn't plumbed just by looking at it. Look, I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts. I'm not the type to air dirty laundry online, but I'm sitting here at 3 a.m. with a glass of wine, still in disbelief about how my life imploded in just 3 days. I need to get this out somewhere, and you internet strangers are getting front row seats to the show. I'm Haley, 32. I supported my husband, Marcus, through school, paid the tuition, the rent, everything while building my business. After dropping out of college, I started my own marketing company from scratch. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. I had 2 employees at the time we met. Now I've got a team of 10 and it's thriving. Not massive, but it paid the bills and then some. Marcus, 34, is my husband. Comes from an upper-middle-class family, and I've always felt they never really approved of the woman their son married. His dad, Gerald, is a financial advisor. His mom, Diane, is in real estate, and his brother, Owen, thinks his business degree makes him God's gift to capitalism. Here's the thing, I always knew they thought I could do better. The side comments about my little business, asking when I'd go back to school, never stopped. But Marcus always defended me, or so I thought. Last Saturday was the annual spring dinner at our place, a tradition Marcus insisted on to show off our home to his family. I spent the morning preparing the yard, pressure washing the deck, and helping with the cooking. Everything had to be perfect for his family. I'd been up since 6, getting the smoker ready for the brisket I'd been dry aging all week. Marcus was more tense than usual, snapping at me for small things, but I chalked it up to the usual family dinner stress. Everyone arrived around 4 p.m. His parents, his brother Owen and his wife, his younger sister Magnolia, who's still in grad school. His mom immediately started critiquing the living room furniture arrangement while his dad asked pointed questions about how business was going, with that tone that suggested he was waiting for me to admit failure. By 6, we were ready to eat. I'd set up the dining table with our good plates, the ones we got as wedding gifts and barely use, but realized we needed 2 more chairs from the garage. As I headed out through the side door, I heard voices around the corner of the house. Owen and Marcus were standing by the Elas, sharing a cigarette, which was weird since he supposedly quit 3 years ago. I was about to call out when I heard my name. I froze. Owen was saying, "I still can't believe he married this. And Dad's right, he needs to divorce her before having kids and getting stuck forever." What Marcus said next felt like taking a sledgehammer to the chest. He replied, "Already working on it. My lawyer says we can take half her business too." I stood there, completely numb, as they laughed about how I had no idea what was coming. They kept talking about someone named Vanessa being a much better fit for him and how I'd wasted my best years with him while I was playing businesswoman. Have you ever had a moment where your entire reality just shifts? 7 years of marriage, the countless nights I stayed up helping him study for his exams, The vacations we skipped so he could afford his textbooks, the extra jobs I took to cover his student loans. All of it suddenly looked different in the harsh light of what I just heard. But I didn't yell, didn't confront them. Something inside me went ice cold. I quietly backed away, grabbed 2 folding chairs from the garage, took 3 deep breaths, and plastered on the fakest smile of my life. Walking back inside, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. I looked perfectly normal. Inside? Nuclear wasteland. The rest of that dinner was surreal. I poured wine, carved the brisket, laughed at his dad's terrible jokes, and watched my husband, the stranger across the table, act like everything was normal. I studied his face, trying to find the man I married. Had he always looked at me with that barely concealed contempt, or was I just seeing it now? When his mom complimented the food and asked for my secret recipe, I nearly lost it. 7 years of family dinners, and now they decide I might have something worth knowing? I explained the dry aging process with mechanical precision while my brain screamed. At one point, his sister Magnolia gave me this weird look, like she was trying to figure something out. She's always been the only decent one in that family. I wonder if she knew. After dessert, Owen raised a toast to family and future changes, looking directly at me with this smug little smirk. I clinked glasses and drank, thinking about how satisfying it would be to break that crystal stem across his face. When they finally left around 11, I started cleaning up, humming to myself, humming like I hadn't just destroyed my entire life. I told Marcus I'd finished the dishes and that he should get some rest. He kissed my cheek and said I was such a good wife. The audacity nearly made me vomit. After he went to bed, I checked his laptop. Password protected, knew the pattern he used for most accounts. 3rd try, I was in. The emails to his lawyer started 3 months ago. The plan was to file after he secured a partnership at his firm using my income to help his status. Then, divorcing me once he locked it in. There were spreadsheets documenting my business assets, our accounts, even a timeline for the divorce. And there it was, a transfer record showing he'd been moving small amounts to a separate account for months, just under amounts that would trigger notifications. Smart lawyer, smart. I checked our joint savings, $20,000 missing. The money I'd been putting aside for business expansion, our future. Then, I found the text with someone saved as V. Apparently, Vanessa wasn't just a better fit for him, she was already test driving my replacement. The text went back 6 months. I didn't sleep that night or the next. I called in sick to work on Monday, the first time in 3 years, and met with a divorce attorney while Marcus was at the office. A guy named Mike, who a friend recommended, told him everything, showed him the screenshots I'd taken. Mike laid it out straight. In our state, Marcus could potentially get half my business value since it grew substantially during our marriage, even though he never lifted a finger to help with it. When he told me the potential settlement amount, I almost blacked out. Everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed for, cut in half and handed to the man who was planning to blindside me. I remember asking Mike, so what? I just bend over and take it? He started talking about amicable settlements and minimizing damages, but I was already gone mentally. That night, Marcus asked if I was feeling better, brought home soup, and acted concerned. I played along, said I was just tired, probably coming down with something. He suggested I see a doctor. The performance was Oscar-worthy. I nodded, thanked him for caring, and told him I loved him. He said it back without hesitation. Those 3 meaningless words fell from his lips while he planned my financial execution. I watched him scroll through Instagram as we sat on the couch, stopping to like a photo of us from last Christmas that his sister posted. The caption read #couplegoals. I nearly laughed out loud. It was like living with a stranger wearing my husband's face. Every movement, every word felt calculated. Had he always been this person? Had I been blind for 7 years, or had he changed? Does it even matter? Here's the thing. I've never considered myself a vindictive woman. When contractors try to screw me over, I usually just cut ties and move on. When clients don't pay on time, I work with them. But this was different. This wasn't business. This was my life. As I lay awake that second night, watching him sleep peacefully beside me, probably dreaming about spending my money with Vanessa, something hardened inside me. A clarity I'd never felt before. You see, Marcus and his family always underestimated me. They saw the calloused hands, the lack of a degree, and assumed I was simple. They never understood that building something from nothing requires intelligence, strategy, patience. I started making phone calls the next morning. First to my bank, then to my business partner, then to a few key clients. By noon, I had a plan forming. By dinner, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Marcus wants war? Fine. But he's bringing a butter knife to a chainsaw fight. This isn't about money anymore. It's about showing him and his entire family exactly who they decided to screw over. The woman they looked down on for 7 years is about to give them a masterclass in consequences. So here I am, 3 days after that dinner, finalizing my blueprint for demolition. Just like any good construction project, you need to lay the groundwork before you build. Tomorrow, everything changes. Marcus thinks he's got it all figured out, but he has no idea what's coming. Neither does his family. Neither does Vanessa. It was time. I decided to confront Marcus and his family all at once. I told him I needed his help with a business emergency, something that would require all hands on deck. He hesitated at first, but I pushed harder, played on his guilt. He agreed to host a family dinner to discuss it. As the night approached, I made sure everything was in place. I set up the dining room with printouts of all the evidence I had collected. The screenshots, the financial records, the transfer details, and the texts. I also made sure to bring the most expensive wine we had, just to add a little irony to the situation. When everyone arrived, Marcus seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly. I knew it wasn't just because of the business emergency. It was Vanessa. He couldn't stop thinking about her. As I set the table, I could feel the tension building. I was about to drop a bombshell on his perfect little world, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. As dinner started, Marcus tried to act normal, but I could see the nervousness in his eyes. His family was all there, waiting for me to explain this so-called business emergency. I raised my glass, smiled at each of them in turn, saving Marcus for last. Before we get to the reason I called this meeting, I said, raising my glass, I'd like to propose a toast to family, to loyalty, and to finally seeing things clearly. The confusion on their faces was priceless. They had no idea what was coming. I sat back down calmly and took a sip of the wine. Everyone was staring at me now, waiting for me to continue. I smiled and clicked a button on my tablet. The first recording played, the conversation between Marcus and Owen that I had overheard. Owen's voice filled the room, saying how Marcus needed to divorce me before having kids and getting stuck forever. I watched their faces as they absorbed the shock. Then, I played the rest, the texts, the emails, the transfers. Marcus looked like he was going to faint. His father, Gerald, was the first to speak. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Marcus, we'll get this sorted. Don't worry." But I wasn't done. I turned to him. "Did you know?" I asked. "Did you know what your son was planning?" Or did you just turn a blind eye to everything he's been doing? Marcus' face went pale. He opened his mouth to say something, but I wasn't done yet. I swiped through the evidence, showing how Marcus had been siphoning money into a separate account, how he had tried to take out a home equity loan without my knowledge, and how he had been planning to use me for his career advancement. The silence in the room was deafening. Then, Gerald stood up, knocking his chair back. "This is outrageous," he shouted. "We'll fix this. You don't know who you're dealing with." But I wasn't intimidated. I looked at him, calmly and firmly. "You're right. I don't know who I'm dealing with. But I do know one thing. Your son is a liar, a cheat, and a manipulator. And you've all enabled him." Marcus tried to salvage the situation, but it was too late. The truth was out. The family that had always judged me was now seeing the real Marcus, seeing what he had been hiding all along. The room went silent. For a moment, I thought I might be dreaming. The entire family, Gerald, Di and Owen, sat there, stunned. They all looked at Marcus, as though waiting for him to explain, to deny everything. But there was no denying what I had just exposed. He was caught, and there was no way out. Marcus' face was drained of color. He was fumbling for words, but nothing came out. Finally, he spoke. "Haley, this isn't what you think." His voice was shaky, trying to find some way to spin the truth. I couldn't hold back any longer. "What do you mean this isn't what I think? You've been planning this for months, haven't you? You and Owen and that girl, Vanessa. It's all been part of your plan." His eyes flicked to Owen, and for the first time, I saw guilt flash across his face. His brother looked down, trying to avoid eye contact. That was when I knew. Owen knew everything, and he had been part of it all. They'd all been lying to me. I turned to Gerald, Marcus' father, and looked him square in the eye. "Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for this family? For him? I've worked myself to the bone to build this business, supported him through everything, and this is how he repays me? By planning to take everything I've worked for and throw me away like I'm nothing?" Gerald's face turned red. "This is absurd," he spat. "You're trying to destroy my son. This isn't about what you think it is. This is just a misunderstanding." I laughed bitterly. "A misunderstanding? How long do you think you can keep fooling yourselves? How long do you think I'm going to sit here, letting you tear my life apart while pretending everything is fine?" Marcus reached out for my hand, his voice pleading. "Please, Haley. I never meant for it to go this far." I pulled my hand away from his, my eyes burning with fury. "No, don't touch me. Don't you dare act like you're the victim here." I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, threatening to boil over. But I held it in. I couldn't let him see how much he'd hurt me. Instead, I focused on what needed to be done. I took a deep breath and looked at the family. It's over. I'm done. And I'm not just walking away from the marriage, I'm walking away from all of you. For a moment, there was just silence until Owen finally broke it. "You can't do this, Haley. You're ruining everything. You're going to regret this." I turned to him, my gaze cold. "I'm not the one who's ruined everything. You all are." I could see the fear in his eyes as he glanced at Marcus. "Marcus, do something," he snapped. But Marcus just sat there, paralyzed, unable to speak. I turned away from them all, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. The end of a chapter. The end of a life I had spent so many years building. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was done being the victim. As I started to gather my things, Marcus stood up and tried to follow me. "Please, Haley, let's talk about this," he begged, his voice breaking. "We can work through this, I swear." I didn't turn around. We've been through this, Marcus. We can't work through this. You've already made your choice, and I'm making mine. With that, I grabbed my bag and walked out of the room, past the shocked faces of his family. I didn't look back. Not even once. The next few days were a whirlwind. I packed up everything I could carry, took the few things that really mattered, clothes, photos, my dog's things, and left the house. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, even though my heart was still breaking. I found a small apartment near my office. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It felt freeing, like I could finally breathe again. I turned off my phone and focused on setting up my new life. I was no longer tied to Marcus, no longer tied to the lie I'd been living. It was strange, adjusting to the silence. No more pretending. No more worrying about keeping up appearances for his family. For the first time in years, I could be myself. Then came the phone call that I had been expecting. It was late at night and my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. My hands shook as I opened it. Haley, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to get this far. I've made a huge mistake. Please let's talk. I'm lost without you. I stared at the message for what felt like hours. My heart ached as I read the words. But I knew better than to fall for his lies again. He hadn't changed. He was still the same man who had planned to take everything from me without a second thought. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him I was ready to finalize the divorce. I wanted it over. I wanted closure. I didn't care about the money, the house, or anything else. I just wanted to be free of him. The divorce was finalized quickly. I moved on with my life. I had no other choice. Marcus, of course, didn't take the news of the divorce well. He called constantly, begging me to reconsider, to come back. At first, it was heart-wrenching to hear his voice crack, to see him in such a broken state. But then reality set in. I had seen his true colors. I had witnessed his betrayal, his lies, his manipulation. And no matter how badly I wanted the man I thought I married to be real, I knew now that he wasn't. The man I loved didn't exist. He never had. I didn't respond to his calls. I didn't need to. Every time I looked at my phone and saw his name, I reminded myself, this was not the life I wanted. I was worth more than this betrayal. I deserve peace. And each time, I felt stronger, more at peace with my decision. I threw myself into my work. My business was my anchor. It was what kept me going in the darkest moments. I'd built it from the ground up, and now it felt like I was finally going to thrive in the way I always dreamed. The support from my clients, my team, and even from unexpected places made me realize just how many people appreciated and respected me for who I was, not for who I was married to. At work, I began developing new ideas, expanding into new markets, and focusing on creating lasting relationships with clients who saw my worth. My business was stronger than ever, and with it, my self-esteem was beginning to grow again. For so long, I had given everything to Marcus. Now, I gave it to myself, and it felt incredible. As the months passed, I found peace in the quiet moments. The pain slowly faded, replaced with a sense of empowerment. I had rebuilt my life, piece by piece. My business was thriving again, and I had a support system that I never knew I needed, friends, colleagues, and even a new sense of self-respect. I had learned the hardest lesson of my life, that sometimes the only way to rebuild is to tear everything down and start from scratch. And I was stronger for it.